Hello everyone, my name is TheMadScorpyon and welcome back to another This Week in Destiny update for the week of September the 26th. Now getting into it, of course, I just wanted to say I'm sorry I missed out on the dev blogs. I'll circle back around to that in this very same video, as well as a brief hotfix in a moment, but I just wanted to say really quick, I did have company coming, and I was cleaning the entire time. That's why I didn't make yesterday's video. I was offline all day, but at the same time, I do have my company's dogs hanging out, so if you hear any barks, whimpers, jingling, that is them just roaming about while I watch them. Aside from that, let's get into the hotfix. Really quickly, they did update Encore, so darkness zones have been removed from both boss encounters on the normal difficulty, as it seemed a little bit out of place compared to most other exotic missions, that you could die and reset back to the checkpoint when none of the others do. Then on the expert though, darkness is unchanged, so you will have to, I'd just say, flawless it if you wish to finish it there. For the Fireteam Finder, activity-specific titles have been added to Exotic Mission Encore to support players in communicating their goals to potential Fireteam members. And then lastly, for gameplay and investment, Triumphs adjusted enemy density in Skywatch to better support the engram requirements for the Accidental Generosity Triumph. Yes, please. That was annoying. And for the Eververse, adjusted the visibility of the recommended title in Eververse, or the recommendations tile in Eververse. Swapping back to This Week in Destiny, we have an official name and some art for the next upcoming dungeon and Revenant, Vesper's Host, which looks to be Vex-focused, but it's hard to say anything. That obviously looks like Vex architecture, but also looks like a portal, and it does seem to be in human architecture. So we'll just have to wait and see. They give us some details. Of course, Vesper's Host, the next dungeon coming with Revenant, will be released on Friday, October 11th, and not only will be the first dungeon to have contest mode, but also the dungeon race. Of course, with contest mode, there is a race to get the world's first. Contest mode, once again, will be enabled for 48 hours. Normal mode will be available as soon as the first 3 fire teams clear the dungeon, and you will need to be at least 1985 power level to be at cap through all encounters. Now, the entry requirements: assemble a fire team of 3 players and start Vesper's Host dungeon in contest mode from the planet system map. All fire team members must own the Final Shape dungeon key and acquire the quest Rogue Network from Spider in the Last City seasonal hub, so that's already something for seasonal content. Then the completion criteria: once the final encounter is complete, the fire team must loot the final chest, or their finish may not be recorded. A team's official finish will be recorded when they loot the final chest. At least one fire team or member of the fire team must have completed and received loot for every encounter, and it must be the first time completing the activity for all members on the fire team. For full details and eligibility requirements, of course, view the official rules. Now, some details for contest mode. It applies some very specific rules to raids and now dungeons. Enemies are more aggressive, encounters feature resurrection tokens, and some encounters will have an enrage mechanic that limits the number of phases or times player can have left to complete it. Also, character power does not provide an advantage above the recommended level. Those of you that triumph over this challenge during the first 48 hours when the dungeon launches will earn bragging rights, a special emblem, and the dungeon exotic weapon. Yes, that is guaranteed reward during contest mode. You have plenty of time to prepare for what's to come and put together an incredible fire team. For those who aren't interested in contest mode, you'll have to wait 48 hours to take your shot at the new dungeon. Normal mode will be enabled as soon as the first 3 fire teams have completed the dungeon. Now, of course, there will be Twitch rivals going on with the raid race. Follow if you're a creator looking to take a part. Sign-ups begin today. And, of course, there is some Twitch drops that will be enabled during each of these. In case you want either of these emblems, keep an eye on the time frames and be sure to tune in during those times. Now, there will also be a developer live stream, which will also have Twitch drops. This begins October 1st at 10 a.m. Pacific, aka reset time on Monday, which will basically be looking at Revenant and more stuff that is arriving with Codename Frontiers. There is the Echo emblem, which is a very cool looking one. Now, some stuff from the PvP strike team. Preview of what's to come in Revenant. Basically, reprising Destiny 2 map of Solitude, updated UI, class icons, assisted buys, tools of destruction, tombstone icons, then Mercy rule changes, lobby balance improvements, competitive will get some changes, sandbox, of course, always reworking, and trials will be getting a new map schedule, and new weapons, and class-based trials labs. So there you go. Now, some preview of what's coming beyond Revenant. Of course, Heresy will be the 3rd episode, a Trials of Osiris rework, Crucible-specific ability uptime tuning, playlist reorganization, Iron Banner improvements, and skill and rank changes. That is pretty much it. Hopefully, well, actually, I'm just going to list all that out, and I'm just going to scroll past most of the Crucible stuff, because, sure, UI helps, Mercy rules, and everything else like that, but personally, I just don't care that much for Crucible, so I'm just going to scroll by some other things. Bits about primary weapons. Yeah, usually these run long and almost always are the same news for Crucible, so I'm just going to keep scrolling until it stops talking about Crucible. Let's see. Playlists, Iron Banner, skill and rank changes. Okay, player support report. New Fireteam Finder categories for Encore. Now for Overture, Concerto, and Coda, yes, there are 3 different weeks and technically 3 different versions of Encore. There is Secrets, Exotic Chests, looking for collectibles, and Mining Nodes, because if you are using Fireteam Finder, somebody could be there for all versions of it. There are 3 different weeks to go through. And for Encore Epilogue, the expert-only version, you can collect all the above or speedrun if you so wish to do it. So we have some more art of the week, as well as movies of the week for 10 years, and that is the end of This Week in Destiny. But now it is time to curve right back into the Dev Insight blogs. So going through the Dev Insight blogs, again, we do get into the Raids and Dungeons tab, keeping up with the theme of Dungeons. The TLDR, every year will kick off with a new raid as part of the first expansion. The following major update will then expand on this raid, adding new challenges, twists, and rewards. The second expansion each year will deliver a new dungeon with an expanded reward offering, and the fourth and final major update of the year will launch an event that leverages legacy, raid, and dungeon content along with the lines of Pantheon. So yes, you did read that right. And the new version basically will have 2 expansions per year. The first expansion will give us the raid. The next season instead expansion will expand on that new raid. The second expansion will have the dungeon, and of course we might get more out of that dungeon, or it might be the one drop. But during the 4th season of the year, the second season in the second expansion, we will get something along the lines of Pantheon, which they don't just say Pantheon 2, they do say something else. So for all we know, we do have a random raid gauntlet coming other than Pantheon. Who knows? But yes. That is pretty much some of the more details things that will come forward. So, raids are a cornerstone of Destiny. They bring fire teams together to tackle overwhelming odds and create legendary moments with the world's first race. So, kicking off the year with a new raid, starting with a new raid in codename Apollo that will stack up against the rich and varied history of experiences in this space. Raids will continue to offer a complete pool of exclusive weapons, armor, and exotics, and these can be attained at higher tiers by taking on additional challenge. Fixing the tall task, followed up by Salvation's Edge, we are exploring some unique twists on the raid format. This is the one where we will not be giving very much information about in the future, and we don't want to risk spoiling the day one experience for Raid Race. So they're adding feats. Our current iteration of Master Raids and Challenges have followed a similar format for a few years, and now it's time to change it up. Starting with Apollo, new raids will support a raid-specific form of challenge customization, where players can select modifiers called feats. Feats will expose and enforce rules such as time trials, contest combatants, and other mode modifiers unique to the raid. The more feats active during a run, the better the chance to earn higher tiered rewards. Basically, selecting your own modifiers to get more score and rewards. Now, a raid challenge update. In the first major expansion following codename Apollo, or the major updates of Season 2, the raid will receive a challenge update, adding new rewards, new mechanics, new feats, and potentially even new encounters. This update will kick off with a raid race event and be a venue for experienced raiders to further challenge their skills. In addition to the highest tier of the raid rewards being available from these challenges, new and exclusive rewards will be added as well, including new weapons and a catalyst for the raid's exotic weapon. Ooh, that sounds nice. New dungeons. Dungeons are an important part of our endgame activity ecosystem. They provide an accessible raid-like experience. This features unique encounters, mechanics, and demands less social coordination and scheduling. So, codename Behemoth, the second expansion, will feature a brand new dungeon. And because the dungeon will be launching as a part of codename Behemoth, there will no longer be a separate dungeon key. Additionally, the reward offering for new dungeons will be expanded to include full weapon and armor sets on par with raids. That is nice. It kind of always sucked that raids had 6 weapons and dungeons only had 4, and that. So the new RAD, I think they maybe, I was going to say raid event, but misspelled, maybe, who knows. But Destiny 2 Into the Light introduced a raid boss rush event called the Pantheon that put Fireteam's capabilities to the test. This event showed us that our community is hungry for new experiences that break out of the mold for traditional raids and dungeons. So on the 4th update of the year, we're playing on another event that introduces novelty and allows our team to experiment with the legacy raid and dungeon offerings to create surprising aspirational challenges. We are very early in the design stages of this event, so more details as we develop them. Raids and dungeons in the core game. Dungeon content will also figure prominently into the new portal as a part of the Pinnacle Ops category. For more information on the portal, see the deep dive here for this article, as well as several updated dungeons will be available to launch and play with a full challenge customization, so we're getting legacy updates. While raid content will initially not be a part of Portal, we are exploring ways to incorporate it into a future release. Until then, new and legacy raid content will continue to be available at its current locations, along with exclusive pool rewards. Now moving on to the next tab of core game rewards. After realizing it wasn't core activities, it was more combat modifiers, as core activities was a previous one, it does sound like things are about to get spicy in the world, because I do have to double back and do this once again. So the problem, basically, was that any activity was the same more over every time. You had the champion spawns, it would be in the exact same place. There might be more, but that would be entirely depending on difficulty. Otherwise, it was pretty much the exact same. So the solution is a new first-class modifier system. There's going to be enemy-specific, knowing or giving enemies known as Banes. Basically, individual enemies will have a unique ability similar to how champions work, but won't be required to have a specific loadout to combat these champions. So the first one we see is Meteors and Shock, which is a bit self-explanatory. Basically, one enemy will have these solar projectiles we've seen many a times throughout the world that you can, of course, just shoot and detonate yourself, but otherwise hurt very badly if caught off guard. And the other one will be Lightning, which doesn't seem to be a long-term attack, but does definitely seem to pop really quickly. The next is Berserk that we see right here, where basically anything that dies or anything that is Berserk, when it dies near random enemies, they'll become enraged, which I assume will be more damage resistant, more aggressive, and otherwise more of a problem. And then we also have the Punchable Bane, which from the sound of it was going to be annoying, because it's basically when it earns this buff, you have to melee it, otherwise it is completely immune to almost all damage. So it's going to be very annoying if it's something that likes to hide, especially like things like Captains and Scorn Wraiths. Otherwise, just punch it and it all goes down. And the last one is the Nuclear Bane, which is definitely going to be an interesting one, because essentially when it gets to low health, it will arm, steadily build up a charge, and if you do not kill it before it finishes this charge, it will go nuclear. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a heavy damage toll, but otherwise it will hurt, especially in higher tier content. So enemy modifiers. While Banes will appear intermittently on individual units, enemy modifiers are used to change the Bane aspects of all enemies in an activity. Adjust your strategies to encounter for enemy modifier, or you may end up flat-footed when something unexpected happens. For example, under a certain enemy modifier shipping in Revenant, some enemies that have copied some tricks about booby-trapping their drops from a famous Scorn Baron. Oh no. So, combat modifiers. Modifiers aren't just about changing enemies, they can affect players too. Surge mods are a classic modifier type that has been used for years in Destiny ritual activities. We've come to realize that too many force build crafting modifiers can become barriers for players. So we're working to create new modifiers as accepting of varied strategies and builds. I think they're learning from Helldivers on that one. More variety in loadout allows people to have fun. Now, the important details. What about champions? They will not be Banes, so champions will be their own type of Bane. Aside from that, Banes currently cannot stack, so we can only expect one issue at a time, but it's just for now. They might be able to stack. And old modifiers versus new ones. No, they will not replace old modifiers, but I imagine more will be introduced, as well as just adjusting them slightly for the future. With that, that is the end of everything I had to offer. Sorry I missed it last week on the dev blogs, but aside from that, that is This Week in Destiny and the dev blogs. It's looking very positive for the future of Destiny and just in how things are shaping up. With that, I will see you in the next video.